think the real question is, will a system develop in the Muslim world that's acceptable to people like David Cameron and Barack Obama and any Republican leader you can put your hand on? We're afraid of anything that has the word Islamic in it. And to expect somehow we're going to have a government emerge in Egypt that's not heavily influenced by Islam is silly. And we also face, you know, our foreign policy, Western foreign policy in the Middle East for 40 years has been based on the maintenance of tyranny. I think that was bad from the start, but nonetheless, that was our strategy, and it's now falling apart. But the result of our support for tyranny was the development of a situation in almost every country where there are only two organizations capable of governing. One is the tyranny, the other one is the Islamic resistance. So the question really is, when they find out that you're not going to have a government in Egypt that looks like the government in Florida, for example, are you going to be happy with it, or are you going to intervene to try to tear it down until you get something that you like? My own guess is the current administration won't like anything that comes about in Libya, in Tunisia, in Egypt.
If a radical Islamic government rises in Egypt, one that disavows the Camp David peace accords and no longer acts as a stable strategic partner in the Middle East, then we will look back on the recent election in Egypt and its successors in December and January as the turning point for a historic reversal of the United States. My hope is that the State Department watches this very carefully. My hope is that we have a plan to make sure this critical country stays within the U.S. orbit. But my fear is, given the recent elections in Egypt, we have already lost quite a bit of ground. And if current trends continue, then by the middle of next year, we will have a Muslim Brotherhood government in command of the Suez Canal, in charge of Cairo, the second center of learning in the Arab world, along the border of our Israeli allies, friendly to Hamas, friendly to Iran, and hostile to Europe and the United States. And my hope is, over the holidays, we work very hard and diligently with our allies and especially liberal forces in Egypt to make sure that that reversal doesn't happen. And with that, Mr. President, I yield now.
كانت هناك قضية بتجهز لقيادات الإخوان المسلمين، وعايز أقول لك على حاجة، وهذا ليس سرا يعلمه اللي بيشتغلوا في السياسة كلهم. كان هناك لقاء بين المخابرات المصرية والمخابرات الأمريكية ومخابرات دول أخرى في الأردن قبل الميليشيات وقبل القصص دي بعد الانتخابات لترتيب كيف يتم ضرب الإخوان المسلمين. وتم الاتفاق، وكان السيد عمر سليمان الله يرحمه حاضر هذا اللقاء، واللقاء ده شهير جدا، وكان لقاء سري بين أجهزة مخابرات لضرب الإخوان المسلمين حتى لا يصعدوا هذا الصعود الكبير. أنا في الوقت ده كنت بدافع عنهم عن حقهم في وجود حزب ليهم. اتخذ القرار وجات المخابرات المصرية مع أمن الدولة ينفذوا القضية بتاعتهم.
Senator Carker, let me talk about our national interest, and particularly vis-a-vis the relationship with the Egyptian military. And let me say that I've been deeply influenced by some of these issues by my experience in Pakistan, where we cut off assistance to the Pakistani military for 12 years with, in my view, disastrous strategic consequences, because now we have a generation of people that have no contact with the American military and no exposure to our values because of their training here. So I think we have some very difficult political issues to work through, but I think our relationship with the Egyptian military, and in turn their relationship with their counterparts in the Israeli military on the very important issues of Camp David implementation and on border issues and on the situation in Gaza is really a cornerstone of peace in the region. So I think we have to look very closely at the role of our assistance in preserving our national security interest in Egypt, and particularly in protecting and working with our ally, Israel.
Chairman, General Dempsey, welcome back. Let's talk about the situation in Egypt. Let me tell you how I feel about this and our commitments under the Camp David Accords, and then let you respond. First, we must maintain the strength of this relationship to enable us to assist and influence Egypt's military leaders. Second, the United States would be short-sighted to overlook the return on investment we get from the Egyptian military. For example, Suez Canal transits for our carrier battle groups, intelligence cooperation, counterterrorism cooperation. I made some pretty emphatic statements. Would you like to elaborate? I'll give you an opportunity to elaborate on what you've said about the relationship that we've had and the assistance and the sales that we've had with the Egyptian military.
Thank you. It goes, my own personal experience with it goes back to when I commanded CENTCOM in 2008. And I can tell you that they're a very strong partner of the United States, a very key nation in the region. As you put it yourself, we enjoy preferential passage in the Suez, dynamic overflight. They've committed to the Camp David Accords. The Israeli military considers the Egyptian military a strong partner. And so in my personal experience, which goes back now about 5 years, they are worth the investment. The Israeli military considers the Egyptian military a strong partner. The Israeli military considers the Egyptian military a strong partner.
Whether it's true or not is a completely different story. The perception is very, very clear that America stood by the Muslim Brotherhood, and even more ironically is that Israel is part and parcel of this perception. Right. Israel and America are one. America sees the Muslim Brotherhood as legitimate, as democratically elected, etc., and Israel the same. Yeah. Which is crazy, but that is the perception. Yeah. Which is crazy, but that is the perception.
My name is Michelle Bachmann. I'm a member of the United States Congress from the United States of America. I want to assure the people of Egypt that I, as a member of Congress, will stand strong in support of continuing military support for the United States support financially to stand for the military in Egypt. We've seen the threat that the Muslim Brotherhood has posed around the world. We stand against this great evil. We are not for them. We remember who caused 9/11 in America. We remember who it was that killed 3,000 brave Americans.
No, you don't remember. Because the Muslim Brotherhood is actually a thing. It's not just a term for guys who are Muslims who maybe have siblings. Muslim Brotherhood's a thing in Egypt, a real thing. And members of the United States Congress from the United States of America going to Egypt and telling Egypt that as members of the U.S. Congress, you think that it was the Muslim Brotherhood that did 9/11? Oh, excuse me, I mean 9/11? That's amazing. But that happened in Egypt. Republicans Michelle Bachmann, Steve King, and Louis Gohmert, A, have passports, and B, use them this weekend to go to Egypt to praise the military coup there and to tell the Egyptian people that the Muslim Brotherhood did 9/11. Congressman Gohmert told the Egyptian generals that when he looks at them, he thinks of George Washington and Thomas Jefferson and Thomas Paine. One political scientist who studies Egypt and the Muslim Brotherhood in particular told the New York Times about this trip today that, quote, that Mr. Gohmert and Mr. King and Ms. Bachmann's visit to Egypt was, quote, like a Saturday Night Live skit. Unbelievable, ludicrous, almost comic if it wasn't so painful.
I think that the whole world should support Sisi. I believe that
the new Egyptian
I think that you have to support him. If we support him, it probably will embarrass him. It probably won't help him. But Sisi and the liberals, Baradei and others, they deserve the support of the free world. To whom else they can turn? I think that the whole world should support Sisi. I think that the whole world should support Sisi.
Egypt had to do what it had to do, and I'm very proud of the Syrian or the Egyptian military being able to offset the moves of the Muslim Brotherhood, who are trying to establish Islamic states.
Any kind of domestic insurgency situation, it's a very precise instrument. In Bosnia, we use that all the time because the gun camera stuff on the Apache is far better than anything else that flies. And so you can operate very close in with very little collateral damage. The other thing is that it can also widen out your area of view so you can use it for surveillance.
Why would the head of the Egyptian army tell us specifically? Well, it's not, this gentleman's analysis, it was the general. The general said, we can't do precision-guided attacks on the bad guys if we don't have a patch.
Israelis were begging for years, for example, that the Egyptian military will take measures to protect the gas pipeline, providing Israel with about roughly 40% of its needs from Egypt. The Egyptian army said no. Several Israeli defense ministers have offered to the Egyptian government, and sometimes Tantawi himself, to accept deployment of Egyptian military, as happened now, in areas in zones B and C. Invariably, the answer of the people who are today the SCAF was no. The collapse of the Egyptian police and General Intel, by the way, means that the main player in the Sinai today on the part of the Egyptian state is military intelligence.
The Egyptian army is not a monolithic organization. They're not all good guys. There is an element of the Muslim Brotherhood in the Egyptian army, even in the officer corps. And General Sisi knows that, and he did ask us for that one thing. He said, I need time to fix this.
وجه واحد يكفيك كل الايه؟ كل الاوجه. ولذلك يجب ان نستعيذ بالله من ان نصنع تصرفا يرضي عنا اليهود او النصارى، لان معنى انني اتصرف تصرف يرضي اليهود ولا النصارى انني بحكم الله علي تبعت ملتهم، لانه قال لن ترضى حتى تتبع ملتهم، لن ترضى حتى تتبع ملتهم. فنعوذ بالله ان نكون منهم محل الرضا. ويجب ان تفرقوا بين الرضا وبين التعايش، فيه فرق بين الرضا وبين التعايش، لان التعايش يقتضيك ان تتحمل فعل قالب ولكن لا بحب قلب. نعم. ايوه. لا بايه؟ لا بحب قلب. والرضا ايه؟ يبقى اذا ما هو الرضا؟ ان تقبل فعل القالب بحب القلب، اللي يحصل انت عاشه وحبه. انما تتعايش تقول له لا اهو يعمل العمل انا مش راضي عنه، انما هو عشان نتعايش.
General Dempsey, do you agree with me regarding the importance of military-to-military relationships as enablers of U.S. foreign policy?
I do, Senator.
And do you agree with me that we should continue to maintain and foster the strength of U.S.-Egyptian military relationship?
I do. If our government decides that they have to take some action based on existing legal frameworks and restrictions, I would recommend that we find a way to restore those as quickly as possible, even if it meant conditioning them some way. But I very strongly believe we have to maintain our contact with the Egyptian Armed Forces.
In the wake of the U.S. cutting a certain amount of military aid to Egypt, you said that relations with the U.S. are in turmoil, and your officer said that this decision is wrong. Tell me what you mean.
Well, actually, I gave the statement in Arabic, and it's closer to that we're going through turbulence rather than turmoil. What I meant, and I'm serious about it, and I will say it again if asked again, is that this has been a relationship that has a continuity to it, especially on strategic issues like military cooperation. And any disruption in that continuity raises concerns. That's really what I meant. I also said in the same statement that this is a very important relationship to both countries and that we need to work to enhance it because it serves both sides. And we will on our side.
What negative repercussions will this cutoff in aid have? You yourself have said that it will have negative repercussions for U.S. interests in the region. What are those, and what negative repercussions for Egypt?
There's no, first of all, it's not a cutoff. It's a freeze or a delay in delivering equipment. That's the first point. Secondly, even that, which is much less than a cutoff, indicates that you cannot depend on the continuity of the programs, and these are programs that relate to national security. That's why they become a serious question. Now, if your friends in the region, when they're facing terrorism in particular, cannot depend on a continuous supply of equipment that deals with terrorism, then you're obviously going to raise questions in the minds of your friends about your dependability, and that will affect your interest as well as that of your friends like Egypt.
Of course, what neither of those sides understands here is that America's government doesn't especially care who's running Egypt as long as we have influence with them. That is why we send them $1.6 billion in aid each year. That's right. By the way, we send Egypt $1.6 billion in aid each year, and we do not want to stop doing that. They're a vital ally for us in that part of the world. In fact, I actually have next year's money right here, which we badly want to bribe Egypt with. I mean, help them with, bribe, help. It's a grey area. The point is, who should I make this comically oversized novelty check out to?
US law, the Foreign Assistance Act of 1961, explicitly says the administration cannot financially support an army that is involved in a military coup.
What? So now we can't even give Egypt money? Throwing money at the problem has long been the backbone of America's foreign policy. It's not good news. This is not good news that we are prevented by our own laws from giving strategic allies any sort of coup aid.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, God, no, 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 no.
No, no, no.
I clearly said coup aid, not Kool-Aid. You are paying for that wall. So it looks like we have us a problem here. Because we want to keep giving Egypt money. But you can't really deny that this was a coup, right?
Legal determination that a coup happened would require a suspension or cutoff in all non-humanitarian assistance to Egypt, including the $1.3 billion in FMF. Is that correct?
Well, Matt, because we're not there, we haven't made that determination.
I know, but the determination that determination would trigger a cutoff or suspension of the assistance. Is that correct?
Again, I don't want to be analyzing what the legal options are here. That is being closely looked at.
Wait, so that's our strategy? We think we can get around our own coup rule if we can just manage to not use the word coup. This is like a game show. Your challenge is to describe the events in Egypt, but if you say the word coup, you will lose everything. It's like the $100,000 pyramid, except it's $1.6 billion and the pyramid is an actual pyramid. So, let's do this. Let's do this thing. Let's play. Here's our first contestant, State Department spokesman Jennifer Psaki. Let's go.
There are a number of factors that are being closely looked at. There is a broad legal definition that is applicable in many cases. A wide-ranging, high-level interagency process determining the next steps on our policy for Egypt. There are millions of people on the ground who do not think it was a coup.
Wow, she's good. She is going Kama Sutra on the English language, bending words into all kinds of exciting, exotic positions before reaching a climax of meaninglessness.
Will you let us know when the heat from the flames of the burning hoops that you're jumping through to avoid taking a position on this get too hot? Or will that just be obvious from what
Matt,
you're saying?
if you're having a good time today, I'll be back here tomorrow. We'll do this again.
Oh, those two are going to like rabbits when they get home. That's a fact. But never mind that. Our next contestant in the $1.6 billion pyramid is White House Press Secretary Jay Carney, who somehow tried to be unequivocal in his equivocation.
In answer to your question, specifically about what we call what happened, I'll be blunt. This is an incredibly complex and difficult situation. I'm trying to be very candid here, is that this is a complex situation. I'm being very clear with you and Nedra and everyone here that this is a complex and difficult issue. And again, I'm trying to be candid here about you'll get no argument from me if you go on the air and say that this is a highly complicated situation.
That poor man. I honestly cannot tell if he's doing a terrible job or just has a terrible job. I think it might be 100% of both. The logic of this situation is insane. It's as if Kate Middleton gave birth, but English law prevented her from calling the thing she was holding a baby. Yes, this tiny human emerged from my womb after 9 months of gestation, but is it a baby? I don't think we should get bogged down in calling it that quite yet. The problem is, we can try to parse words on this all we want. We can call this a Morsi-ectomy, you know, a surgical removal of a man from the body of the country he was hurting. But everyone's going to know what we're saying. Let's be clear here. We can describe what happened in Egypt as a complicated and multifaceted copulative situation, But everyone knows that that is just a fancy legal way to avoid calling it what it is, a complete cluster. We'll be right back.